President Ibrahim Traore was in a private meeting at a military base outside Ouagadougou. Nothing big, just a quiet gathering of senior officers and advisors to discuss logistics for an upcoming operation in the east. Calm, casual, nothing unusual. They sat in a circle under a mango tree. Cups of warm, spiced tea were passed around by a soldier in plain uniform. Traore took the cup, as always, with a smile. He nodded in thanks, but then he paused. He didn't sip, not yet. His eyes flicked toward the server. A new face, young, nervous. He held the cup in both hands, gently, like it was glass. Across the circle, Colonel Yaya Konate, an old officer known for his sharp mind and cold eyes, took his first sip quickly, almost too eagerly. He looked at the president and said, "Please, drink, sir. The tea is fresh." But Traore didn't move. He smiled. Then slowly, he placed the cup down on the small wooden table beside him. The air around them shifted, slightly. Not enough for a normal person to notice. But Captain Zongo, sitting in the back like always, saw the signal. Traore had trained with wolves. He knew how betrayal smelled. 2 hours earlier, inside the palace, Traore had received an anonymous tip, a small note left on his desk while he was in a meeting. "Watch your tea. Today, they will test your trust." No name, no clue, just that one warning. He didn't ignore it. Instead, he played along. He stuck to the schedule, traveled to the base, sat among men he had known for years, and waited for someone to show their hand. And now, as the untouched cup sat between them, talkie, and spoke 2 words, "Bring him." Within seconds, 2 soldiers came forward, escorting the young tea server, the nervous soldier in plain uniform, his hands tied behind his back. He looked terrified. His mouth was shaking. One of the president's bodyguards placed a small pouch on the table. Inside it, a tiny plastic vial found hidden in the server's sock. The label on it read in tiny writing, VXT42, a slow-acting neurotoxin, enough to kill a man within minutes, colorless, tasteless, odorless. And now, sitting inside a teacup meant for the Lion of Burkina Faso. The president turned to the circle of officers. "I've led soldiers into real battles," he said calmly, "and I've buried brothers in war. But this, betrayal from inside our own house, is worse than any enemy." Then he looked at Konate again. "You invited me here. You arranged the tea, and you told me to drink first." Konate stood up slowly, his face pale. "This is madness." But Captain Zongo was already moving. Within seconds, Konate was surrounded. Traore stepped closer, face to face. "Did you think I wouldn't feel it, Colonel? You think I made it this far by drinking every cup handed to me?" Konate said nothing. Traore leaned in. "Men like you don't want power to serve. You want it to sell." Then he gave the order, "Take him in." "No public arrest. We're not giving them a show. We're giving them silence." As the colonel was led away, the rest of the officers sat in disbelief. The poison had failed. But the message was clear. The lion had been tested. And he did not blink. Back at the palace, the traitor was locked in a cold underground room, the kind where the walls heard every word, but never spoke. Colonel Konate refused to talk. He denied everything, claimed he had nothing to do with the young tea server, said he didn't know about any poison, that he was being framed. But President Ibrahim Traore wasn't interested in shouting matches. He believed in evidence, quiet, sharp, and solid. Captain Zongo walked into the interrogation room with a small black notebook. It had been found hidden in the soldier's bag. The tea server who nearly served death in a cup. Zongo flipped it open, showing it to Konate. "This is your handwriting," he said. "We checked." Inside the pages were coded names, meeting dates, and strange payment lists, including a large transaction just days before the attempted poisoning. But one name appeared more than any other. Le Chacal. The jackal was enough. The device had recorded everything. His voice, his movements, even the way he walked. Back in the war room, the voice was run through software. a match popped up. Alexandre Morel, a French intelligence officer linked to activities in West Africa, officially retired, but known in classified circles as Le Chacal. It was him, the man who gave the order to kill President Ibrahim TRAORE over tea. But arresting him wouldn't be easy. He had no diplomatic badge, but if they captured him in public, foreign powers could scream kidnapping. If they raided the apartment, he could disappear in seconds. His exit routes were likely covered. Traore thought for a long moment. Then he said, "Let's give him what he wants." Zongo raised an eyebrow. "Sir?" "We tell him, I'm holding a private dinner. Invite only. Important guests. He'll try again." Zongo nodded slowly. "And when he comes?" Traore's eyes narrowed. "We end it." The trap was set. President Ibrahim Traore announced a quiet, high-level dinner to be held inside the presidential villa. Just a few trusted guests. No press, no public list. Word spread quietly through the usual channels, just loud enough for a certain someone to hear. Zongo and the team kept eyes on apartment 3B. They didn't see Morel leave, but they did see his phone activate again. A new burner. This one pinged a message across the city. "La fenêtre est ouverte. Dernier service ce soir." The window is open. Final service tonight. They knew what it meant. Another assassination attempt was coming. But this time, Traore was not the target. He was the bait. Inside the palace kitchen, the entire catering team had been replaced by counterintelligence officers in chef uniforms. Every utensil, every dish, every cup, checked and marked. Hidden microphones were placed under the dining table, in the flower vases. Even inside the salt shakers, no movement would go unnoticed. At 7:30 p.m., the dinner began. 4 guests sat at the table, all carefully chosen, loyal, silent, aware of the mission. Traore sat at the head, calm, dressed not in full military uniform, but in a modest traditional tunic. He didn't want to look like a target. Zongo was in the surveillance room, eyes on every angle. "No movement from apartment 3B, he whispered into the mic. "No entry breach detected." But then, it happened. A waiter appeared with a tray of drinks. He wasn't one of their men. Zongo froze. "Who is that?" "That's not one of ours." The cameras zoomed in. The man moved differently. His face was calm, but his right hand trembled, just slightly. He set the tray down and stepped back. Traore raised his glass, but did not drink. He looked the man in the eye and said, "Would you like to share a drink with your president?" The man hesitated. Traore stood up slowly. "You've been running for a long time, Alexandre, but you made one mistake." The entire room moved in an instant. Chairs scraped. Guards burst in. The man tried to grab a pin from inside his sleeve. Something small, something sharp. But Zongo was already behind him. In seconds, he was pinned to the floor. "No gun?" Traore said, walking over. "Just poison again? You really thought the same trick would work twice?" Morel, Le Chacal, looked up, his face tight with rage. "You've made enemies you cannot fight," he hissed. Traore crouched beside him. "I'm not fighting them," he said. "I'm outliving them." He stood and gave the command. "No press. No parade. Fly him out tonight to the deepest cell we have. This is not a show. This is a message." Across the city, nothing looked different. But something huge had happened. A second attempt on the president's life had failed. The man behind it all, caught, silenced. But Traore wasn't finished. He knew this was not just about poison or politics. This was a warning. Someone out there is willing to kill for power. But now they knew. Traore doesn't drink from any cup, without checking what's in it. The silence after the storm was almost louder than the storm itself. No announcements were made. No photos were leaked. The man called Le Chacal, the ghost behind the poison, had vanished into a hole so deep the world would never find him again. But President Ibrahim Traore knew the danger hadn't passed. He sat alone in his office the next morning, holding the same ceramic cup from the first attempt. Washed clean now, empty, but still heavy with meaning. He thought about the young soldier who carried the poison without understanding it. He thought about Colonel Konate, once a man of honor, now waiting for justice in chains. And he thought about the people, the millions who trusted him without knowing how many nights he walked the edge of death. Then came a knock. It was Captain Zongo. "Sir," he said, "the military academy is ready for your address." Traore nodded. That afternoon, Traore walked into the courtyard of Burkina Faso's National Military Academy. Hundreds of young cadets stood in formation. They had heard the whispers. Something dangerous had happened, something big, but they didn't know the full truth. Traore stood on the stage, microphone in front of him, no paper in hand. He didn't need notes. "Some of you may not understand the weight of the uniform you wear," he began. "You think it gives you power, but it gives you responsibility." He raised the cup. "This cup almost ended my life. Not because of the tea inside, but because of the trust I placed in the wrong hands." He paused,